and welcome. We are here to present a land acknowledgement, something of a great responsibility. For us, a land acknowledgement is an invitation to a conversation. A land acknowledgement requires compassion and empathy. Over the past few years, the act of the land acknowledgement itself has been colonized. The modern land acknowledgement often focuses on borders, something that was heavily introduced by colonialism. Tonight, we recognize that Ryerson University resides on land that has belonged to the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. But we also recognize that borders are made-up lines, and the harm done on this land has affected many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also want to acknowledge that this festival was produced by a school called Ryerson University, named after a person who has caused so much harm with his role in the development of residential schools.
Borrowing with gratitude from the work of Adrian Wong at Spiderweb Show and Full Day, I want to recognize that the kinds of technologies essential to delivering this type of programming are not available in many rural and Indigenous communities. We've been using programs like Zoom as a platform to present our festival to the Ryerson community and the world. Therefore, we would like to acknowledge that the home office of Zoom is located on land that we now call San Jose, California. The Ohlone are the predominant Indigenous group of the Bay Area, including the Chochenyo and the Karkin in East Bay and the Ramaytush in San Francisco, the Yokuts in South Bay and Central Valley, and the Mwekma tribe throughout the region. Other Indigenous groups include the Grattan Rancheria community, the Kashia, Patwin, and the Mishawal Wapo in the North Bay, and the Bay Miwok in the East Bay. The arrival of Spanish explorers and missionaries in the late 1700s was the first major threat to Ohlone existence and culture as a result of forced cultural and religious assimilation, exposure to European diseases, and harsh living conditions. If you would like to learn more about Indigenous communities in the Bay Area, please visit bayareaequityatlas.org.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's presentation. I'm Carlyn O'Brien. I'm chair at the School of Performance. It's my huge pleasure to welcome you to our discussion this evening. As we reflect on the past 9 months, I think our panel will attest to the unprecedented change that we've witnessed in both our professional practice and in our training this year, and that we have discovered many new ways of working together. I extend a sincere thanks to the Dean of Faculty of Communication and Design, Charles Falzon. I'd like to send a special shout out to Michael Bergmann and Bonnie Thompson, who have been so instrumental in many ways this week. To our guest artists, to my colleagues on faculty and staff, and to students across the school for your engagement, your commitment, and your willingness to reimagine the work. While we wait for a safe return to campus and to the stage, the health and safety of our community at Ryerson continues to be the top priority, and we continue to share our work virtually. I really hope that you will enjoy this evening's panel discussion.
Thank you, Caroline. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Bergmann, and I'm an assistant professor here at the School of Performance at Ryerson University. And I would like to welcome you tonight to our panel. Most importantly, I would really like you to hear from our students and the amazing work that they've done in taking this online virtual semester and making some beautiful work out of it. And we would love to share our process with you. So panelists, please welcome aboard, and we'll start with some introductions, and then we will have a chat together. So Elle, why don't you start?
All right. Hi, I'm Elle. I was the video operator for Clown 2020.
Great. Abby?
Hi, I'm Abby, and I was one half of the wardrobe team for Clown 2020.
Great. Carlyn?
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlyn. I'm a fourth year, and I was one of the costume stylists in Love and Innovation.
Great. Simon?
Hi, my name is Simon. I'm in fourth year, and I was a costume designer on Love and Information this semester.
Liam?
Hello, everyone. My name is Liam, and I was the production stage manager on Love and Information.
And Nigel.
Hi, I'm Nigel. I'm the head of video of Love and Information.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to do this and to speak with us today. So first off, let's start with the fact that all these projects had to be very much reimagined for a virtual world. So last night at the festival, we showed Clown, and that's a production that has a very strong audience component in the live showing of it. So, and it also was our first show this semester that we really were trying out and experimenting with these new technologies. So, Elle, can you talk a little bit about the process of making the Zoom version of Clown and what you discovered in that?
Sure. So, as you said, Clown has a very essential audience response component. As they are clowns, they really need to hear that their work is that people are laughing, that they're having some impact on the audience, and so it was decided pretty early on that we had to do it live. The director, Leah, decided that it really wouldn't work if it was all pre-recorded. So after that, it was deciding on the platform that we were going to use, and since all of our actors they'd been rehearsing on Zoom, so they were really familiar with the space. So we decided that even though Zoom is not made for performances, it was the best place to present their work, as they were already so used to the space. And then as we went into sort of tech week, it was really mostly about me and the stage manager figuring out the best way to use the space to present their clown routines, and figuring out how to put people where and in which place, and who would be able to operate the different components of working in Zoom. I was the Zoom operator, as I think is the best term for what I did. I was in charge of making sure that people got onto the stage pretty much as it was their turn, and moving them from breakout rooms into the main room. So it was determined that that was the best place for me to work, and then any pre-recorded video component, even though that is my department, would be operated through QLab by our sound technician. And after we figured all that out, it was figuring out how to get the audience in as well, and making sure that they were present and responsive, but also not interrupting. And just because of the way that Zoom it works internally, that's a little difficult to figure out. And so we had a couple brainstorming sessions on how to have them there, but also having them not be making sure that the clowns were still the main focus of the show. And after a long series of figuring out how to do this, as Michael mentioned, this is the first show that we did like this over Zoom. We managed to pull off 2 performances, and the video that you saw last night from Clown was, I believe it was our first performance, one of our nights, and so we recorded that and made sure it was all ready to go for presentation during the festival.
Thanks, Al. Yeah, so and if anyone wasn't able to see the performance last night, starting next week, the video of that will be available on our festival website if anyone wants to check it out for the next week. So another huge part of building Clown and the characters is the costumes. So Abby, how was the costume process for Clown?
So the costume process for Clown was actually it was a really interesting process, because it was very different from how a normal costume process functions at our school. But I think it was a really great opportunity for everybody to learn a lot and get kind of a new experience. So in the beginning, it was a lot of kind of discussion about what would or could be possible and what couldn't, and that discussion was ongoing up until very close to when the performance happened. Initially, there had been discussion about the wardrobe team, so myself and my partner Alex, who's not here tonight, potentially providing pieces for the actors to wear. That was an option at some point, and then through some more time and discussion, and as more information about, just as the world was changing with the virus and all those things, that just became clear that wasn't going to be a possibility. But it was all a lot of kind of just accepting those things as they came and adjusting and fixing, and that was an interesting part of the process. So there was a lot of discussion and all that stuff about what both we and also like Leah, who was the director for Clown, was looking for. And when it came down to it, it ended up being an extremely collaborative process between both the wardrobe team and the actors themselves, which was also its own kind of unique opportunity. So there was some preparation about what we were kind of looking for. We provided some sort of prompting questions for the actors to consider, to allow them to select things and items from their own closets that they were going to wear. So basically, we put out some prompting questions, asking them to just pick out a few pieces, things that they sort of connected with, things that they thought could be fun, etc., etc. And we had these fitting periods where we had us and 2 to 3 actors in all at once. And they were these very dynamic fitting periods over Zoom, where we would have actors kind of get together, just try on what they were thinking of, and we would offer like feedback or suggestions about how to wear things, or maybe some things to add or things to take away. And it was a very eclectic process. Each fitting actually moved very quickly, because since we had 2 or 3 actors in each fitting, while one person was changing, another person would show us what they had on, and they were also able to kind of give each other feedback too, which was a really special opportunity. Again, very different from how it works a lot of the time, but also something kind of really unique and exciting, and also was a way to make things very personal for both the actors. And we had some really fantastic moments of creativity and like collaboration between our team and the actors, and that was a really, really, really wonderful experience, I think. Yeah, so that's kind of how that went. It ended up being just that we had no budget. It was just all pulled pieces from their own closets with our kind of guidance and help, trying to like get the eye for whatever aesthetic they were hoping to pull off, which ended up working out pretty well. So, and then during the show, I created some paperwork to help things run a little more smoothly. Some of it was similar to paperwork that we normally use. Some things were totally different. And then also I was there as kind of just someone to check in with during the run, if they needed any kind of advice with what was going on with what they were wearing, or just anything really. So it was a much more like eclectic, dynamic experience than normal. It had to be very flexible, but still really valuable, I think, and it turned out really well.
Absolutely, it turned out very, very well. I think that a collaboration was clear in the final product. So well done. So let's segue to wardrobe on another show. So tonight we are premiering Love and Information after this panel, our 4th year acting project. And so this show was recorded in Zoom and some other platforms, and then edited together into what you're seeing tonight. So Simon and Carlyn, can you tell us about the process of designing and executing the costumes for this show?
Sure. So I'm going to get started, and then I'll pass it off to Carlyn to talk about how we actually made this physically happen. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the initial design process. So starting off, when we began, it started like most shows where we got emails and we started discussing. We had meetings, but it was all done through Zoom. We attended a read through, and all the designers took notes. I should also preface that there were 3 designers on the show, because it was such a large scale show. I mean, there's over 100 characters and 7 sections. And although these you'll see tonight. I don't want to talk about it too much. So we attended read-throughs and just to figure out what was going on. The scope and scale of the show was a major discussion that needed to happen very early on about what we were hoping to do and what was even possible in this like new world that we're all facing right now. And I think the big like theme through this whole thing was like everything was constantly subject to change, and we could like the pieces would like the meaning of pieces would change, and the intent behind pieces would change, or how things were being sent to people would change. And it was just everything was, and you had to be able to flip on a dime and be able to completely change your attitude and even like what you were expecting to do, which was at times frustrating, but super, I think, interesting in the long run. And then like moving on from there, we just, we attended rehearsals in the first little bit just to get a feeling of the show as a whole, and also like individual sections and how they feel and how they relate to like the major themes within the show. And we decided that because there was 3 costume designers and a wardrobe supervisor who was also taking on a designing role as well during the show. If Kaylee's here, I'd just like to say you did an amazing job, thank you. That we had to split up the show between all of us just so that we could all manageably take a section of this and not feel like we were losing our minds. And then after we started attending rehearsals, it was a lot of formulating our designs, which was having discussions between each other, talking to the actors as well within rehearsals, just about their initial ideas from the first read through and stuff like that. And as well talking to the director and going through I believe we had a meeting where we went through the entire, like each scene by scene, and talked about the intention, what it means, what's happening, and stuff like that. I would say that the whole process, especially in this first half, felt very like collaborative, and it felt, even though we went in with a script, it felt more like a devised process than it did a like full like scripted work, like a traditional performance, which I thought was interesting, and it kind of provided a little bit more of like a wide range of ideas. And like even because the show is so open-ended, it allowed for so many different things to happen, which was so fun as a designer to be able to work within that. Like we could do whatever we wanted, which was interesting. And then after that, we went into prelims where we kind of formulated general ideas, colors, cuts, shapes, kind of things, accents, like things that we really wanted to note, or like motifs that we wanted to continue. And we presented it to each other as well as to the director. And we, just to also confirm and to make sure that we had a cohesive show through the whole thing, which was important because it's such a, like just a very wide range of things happening. It's important, I think it was important that it felt cohesive. And then we had reading week, which was the week where we kind of hunkered down and really had the chance to design. We were given intentions behind scenes, and we were able to like really produce the work and create these big long PowerPoints with exactly what we wanted each character to be wearing in each scene. It was a lot, but it was very interesting. And then we finally got into like our finals, in which we presented this information to the director, and as well to like, we provided it to the actors to be able to be seen and to look through. And then like, unlike a normal performance style where we would do like a finals and we'd present our ideas and then we'd talk about what we'd build, buy, and purchase, we went into more of like a fitting situation where we went through their closets and saw what they had, and were able to like kind of alter our ideas based on what they wanted. And then we also sent them lists prior because we had created this idea of what we wanted them to wear. We sent them lists of what we really, really hoped that they had, as well as lists of stuff that we wanted to pull from Ryerson, because we have quite a large stock of wardrobe things and accessories and bags and whatnot. And also the things that we know that we don't have in stock and that we would likely have to purchase. And we started formulating these big, long lists. And I think at the end of it, we ended up having like 4 or 5 lists of just like constant everything that we had going. Anyway, I'm going to pass it off to Carlyn, and she's going to talk about everything else in the process. Thank you.
Hey guys, if or my audio is really bad, just cut me off and I'll turn my video off. It's basically, as Cameron was saying, we were doing a lot of fittings in the show. Fittings were essential to letting this run because we're taking mostly from what the actors have in their closets. So we would kind of set up a half an hour to an hour meeting with each of the actors, go through each scene that they were in, and kind of break exactly what the designer wanted for their costume. And if they had a piece similar to that, like Simon said, we had to be really lenient as to, I couldn't be like a red dot shirt. It kind of had to be, I'd like a red shirt that's patterned. And then we would write down notes. If they had something, we didn't have anything, we wrote a note down. And then later after those fittings, we kind of had a meeting just with the wardrobe team and made a whole Google sheets of what we needed to pull, and then discussing with Alex what she had remembered, what we had in stock, what we needed to buy. And this went on, I think we had, for some actors, it was just one fitting. And then for others, we had two real fittings. And I'll get to our kind of final-ish fitting later on. But we put together all the lists, and then Alex would purchase the things that we needed to purchase pretty much right away while we were on the video call. And then Alex and Kelly, who was our wardrobe supervisor, would kind of check where the packages were, let our actors know when they arrived, and then we would have those fittings again. Once the actor received their call from online, we would ask them to send photos of themselves wearing it, make any notes, and tell them if we wanted them to change anything about the costume. For me personally, I had one of the others off a hood of her hoodies. And then, yeah, the shipment and the kind of organizing of those was really important. So for us, having that Google spreadsheet and the ability to kind of constantly be emailing was essential. And for the film day, so having where we would go through in separate breakout rooms before they went to the filming kind of festival showcase. That's what the showcase. We would go through, the designer would first go through and be like, hey, can you tuck in your shirt? Hey, I need your hair to be slicked back more. Just make some final notes. And then the person, wardrobe person in each show would do a final check through with stage management, making sure that everything was correct on our breakdown, that, you know, they hadn't untucked their shirt again, whatever it might be. And then they got sent into showcase room. Basically, lists and Excel and all that kind of stuff, integral to this, making the costumes work. And also having fittings where we could see the actors in their costumes, because pretty much that's what it was. We just kind of sat through a screen and like, good, or change that. So that's kind of how costume went for Love and Information. It was, as Simon said, very collaborative and very heavy.
Thanks, Carlyn. Thanks, Simon. The kind of theme I'm hearing in a lot of this is like systems and lists and organization. So let's talk a little bit more about that kind of the process. So Liam, can you walk us through what the management of the show was? What were these systems, and how did coordination work with something that had so many moving parts to it? And how is this a little different than as we would do it in person?
Yeah, for sure. So like Simon and Carlyn both said, this show is very much collaborative process between the actors, the director, and the production crew, because this play has no context. The scenes they have little stage directions in them. There's no character names. There's not even character 1, character 2. It's just lines going down the script. So it was up to the director, Dustin, and the actors and their scene partners to come up with the context and the setting and any special props, or if they were using blood or anything that they may need in their scene to make it work. And we thought, how are we going to get all of this information to the production crew? So we had them fill out a massive Google Sheet. Google Sheet was our best friend throughout this process because we can all work on it together. So we had the actors, the cast fill out, there was like 54 tabs on it, and every tab had a different scene. And we got the cast to put down literally where is it taking place? What is the time frame? What is your character's name? What is the backstory? And this information helped the production team get a little bit more information about what is going on in this scene, because like I said, there's no context within these scenes. So how were the designers supposed to know what was happening? So they used this information that we put together to kind of get the ball rolling. And then once we actually started rehearsing these scenes with Dustin as the director, we would have multiple breakout rooms in Zoom going on. We would have one for rehearsal, and then we would have 2 or 3 separate breakout rooms if the cast wanted to just work on it together, like their scene together with their scene partner and run through it a couple of times. And then like Carlyn and Simon said, we also had 1 to 2 wardrobe fittings going on at the same time, as well as what I like to call set fittings, even though they weren't just set fittings. And this is where the scenes would meet with members from the lighting team and audio and video and the set and props team. And they would sit down and say, okay, how are we going to make this work? We want to make it look like we are sitting at the same table. How is this going to work? So instead of in-person theater where we would do levels and stuff like that, and the rehearsal hall, it was kind of more of, how are we going to make this work and make it possible? Are we going to send them the same tablecloth and stuff like this? So that was something unique to virtual theater that I found is kind of leading the cast through all the production steps, because we're so used to being in there and doing a lighting hang, but we can't go into their houses. So how are we going to get them to set up these LED smart light bulbs that change colors that Katie, our lighting lead, is going to change from her house? Like, how is this going to work? So we had to sit down and have lots of meetings and trial runs even before we got to the cast to kind of figure it out amongst ourselves. And then we would do this with the cast. And we also decided that we, like myself and Justine, who is the technical director, and Aiden, who is the production manager, we figured that we were sending emails and Basecamp notifications and no one was responding because people are very busy with virtual school and everything. So we decided to have daily meetings, daily production meetings, where in-person theater, we would do 1 or 2 production meetings a week, but we figured that having daily production meetings would allow people to come together and update everyone instead of just sending an email. So if something changed in rehearsal, I would put it in rehearsal notes, but it would give us the opportunity to talk to each other, because in person, again, I might see Carlyn in the hall and say, oh yeah, this happened, but I'm not seeing Carlyn in the hall right now. So this provided us the space to kind of have our hallway talk or a meeting, because we don't get to have that. So we also had daily meetings, which is also different, and got a little tiring at the end of it. And I think a lot of us kind of dropped down by the time we got there, but I think it was very important that we kept going with it. And then once we got to the actual tech and filming stage, how were we going to do that? Because we don't have a theater. Zoom is not a theater. So kind of like how Abby said and Elle talked about the breakout rooms and Carlyn talked about the breakout rooms, we would start each section, we would film sections at a time and tech sections at a time. And we would open up about 10 breakout rooms, and we would label them the scenes that we were working on that day. And the cast would go into their little breakout rooms and wait for production. And the production team members would literally go to each of the rooms and go through that checklist that Carlyn was talking about. And we would make sure that their earbuds are connected, they're attached to the right microphone, their lights are both on, like the stuff that you don't really think about, we had to make sure we were doing, because again, we weren't there to make sure it was happening. We had to trust them to do it. So we had to do a little checklist that they would check out. And again, Google Sheet, it was the best thing, because then I would get to see, and then Bree, who is the backstage stage manager, once she got all of the final checks, she would hand the cast to me. Production would head into the next room, and I would hang out with the cast, make sure that nothing changed. Like Carlyn said, if a sleeve was rolled up, and make sure that sleeve was unrolled, because that's not what the designer wanted. And then when we were ready to film, we would head on over to the showcase room, and I would hand the cast over to M, who is the calling or filming stage manager, and they would film the scene. And that was pretty much it for the filming process. And there was 2 major differences, and it was, we can't talk to each other right away. So that was a struggle, but constant communication, I feel like we were pretty good at it, because we knew how important it was. And another thing was, if someone's Wi-Fi was going down, how are we going to solve it? We weren't in there. We weren't able to solve things, because of in-person theater, if an actor's mic breaks, like, we're able to fix it. We can just get in there. Light breaks, we can fix it. Prop is missing, we're able to find something else. But with this, I'm in my bedroom. this actor is in a different province. What are we going to do? So it was a lot of just talking with people through things on how to fix things, because we're not able to do it with them. So I think big thing was communication, which is obviously a big thing all the time. But yeah, I'd say those are the key things that happened.
Thanks, Liam. As it was mentioned there, this massive recording process that took place over a week of collecting all of these individual scenes and all of this footage that then was followed by an editing and post-production process as well. So Nigel, can you talk to us about the process coming from like the role as the video team, what those discussions were like, the whole green screen thing, and what the recording and editing process was after that?
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. And also thank you everyone again for joining us today to display and speak on the work that we've been working super hard to achieve this semester. I'm Nigel. I'm the head of video in Love and Information. And with this new digital format, we've had to adapt a lot, and we have to be hands-on, but as hands-on as you could be in a fully digital format. Doing a show in a virtual space instead of a theater, it opens us to so many different new possibilities and new directions. But certainly it can also open up, many complications. That's something we had to deal with, quickly in this process, internet problems, setting up, the set and, the green screen, to be placed in the right spot, how we're going to record all these actors, how far can, we push the limit of our creativity. And, so collaboration, that word again, and patience were like very key in managing these process and getting these questions answered, So we started the process for the show by, hearing the script and really trying to understand what we were reading. And we tried, framing it in different perspectives that could, dramatically change how you would view the scene. And as actors got comfortable with the scene, it was brought to, both video and the set team to bring it to life with that newfound context that we've given it. So that's where we spent most of our process and time, deciding the camera angles, choosing the backdrops, choosing the themes, deciding if we would even use a green screen in that shot or not. All that depended in this step of the process. The next step was, the filming week. We spent a lot of time. When I say a lot of time, we spent a lot of time adjusting these scenes, super small, minute movements in the camera just to get the frame right. Getting the camera just to work properly, just for the time being that we were recording, and, organizing which programs, the software we'd be using to get the video and audio in the cleanest format possible. So we ended up using a combination of 3 different programs to get all these puzzle pieces together, using Zoom, Zencaster, StreamYard, all that to put together this beautiful puzzle. The editing was really the home stretch of the process, where the audio and video teams worked super close together to achieve that final look. We all had our little parts, taking our turns with the green screen, but then we all assembled it, piece by piece onto one master timeline. And I'm really proud of what our team had to do to get there, and special thanks to Damian Murphy, who worked tirelessly on the process and helped us get to the end result.
Thanks, Nigel. And looking forward to sharing that end result with everyone tonight. So let's move to some more open questions, and I'll make mention to our attendees here today. Go ahead and hit that Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window, and type a question for our panel if you want. Caroline Rodway will have a look at them. Hi, Caroline. And she'll read out your questions for us when we get to there. So I'm gonna start a question for everyone just to get us going. So what do you think was your biggest surprise for you working through your show and your process that you didn't expect when we started off any of this a couple weeks ago?
I would say just like how collaborative the whole thing was. Like I expected, because we're in this isolated world, our work would also be isolated, but it was surprising to me the amount of daily meetings we had and constant conversations and email chains and Facebook group messages and chats, and like it was just constant communication through every single like mode possible, and it was kind of wild and kind of cool to see.
Yeah, jumping off of that as well, like the willingness of everybody to do this new type of art. Like we've never done anything like this before, and we were all figuring it out together, and everyone was so willing to just throw it right in there, throw all of their Wi-Fi out, like figure this thing out. And if something came up, at least multiple people were jumping on it to try and find a solution. So that surprised me as well, which was really cool.
I would say the amount of problem solving necessary for a project like this in the virtual world, I'm not sure if it was just me, but going into a process that's fully digital, after working in theater, this physically, working physically in the theater, my initial thoughts that in the virtual world, it would sort of be easier, that the process would kind of become a little more simplified, that, it kind of comes down to the individual and just getting what you need from the individual and piecing it together. But the process is much more difficult than that. And I think that's a bit of a surprise. In these meetings every day, we would, explain to each other the problems that we're coming across and like in our field, like what complications we were having on the team and what we were dealing with. And we all just kind of laid it all out and we pitched our solutions. And there was a lot of solutions that came from a lot of people, and it really all came together, and it really worked out, trying to navigate through this somewhat confusing landscape that we're now in. So I think the amount of problem solving we all had for this project was something that is a little bit surprising to me, I think.
I'm not sure if surprise is necessarily the right word, but you never expect a show that's meant for stage, but hosted over Zoom be really interesting and dynamic to watch. But working on the show and being able to see all of the really cool shots and imagery that you'll soon see presented later tonight was really cool to see happen.
Great, thank you all. Looks like we're starting to get some questions. So Caroline, why don't you give us one?
So our first question would probably be for Liam, and it asks, how long were your daily production meetings? Were they the same or shorter than the weekly meetings?
Yeah, so we had our daily meetings every day from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Nice time slot right in the middle of the day, typically in-person theater downtown. They'd be around 1 to 2 hours as well, but with our meetings, it was a little different because we would probably spend around the first 15 to 20 minutes kind of updating everyone on what's happening. And then we would send everyone to breakout rooms according to their department. It would start off with people in their own departments, and then we would all kind of go to each other's departments and update people as needed. So it would range. Daily meetings around 30 to an hour, but 30 minutes to an hour.
And then I know for wardrobe specifically, we usually met another time during the day just to specifically talk about what we were doing for wardrobe that day. So that was usually another like half an hour after that meeting where we would stick on or open a new meeting and talk.
Great. All right, let's do another.
Okay, so we're going to ask a question in tandem. Do you think this new style of Zoom theater will exist beyond the pandemic? And is there anything from the Zoom Google Sheet era that you want to keep in the back to normal theater?
I think for theater that to collaborate with artists that are, overseas or in different cities, I think online theater can present it in really cool, innovative ways. I definitely think that live theater is still going to stick around because it's awesome. But this process has been eye-opening to the world of what we can achieve online and, over provinces, overseas. Dustin was in New York. I think this will be a lot of different processes that we've learned. Even in Ryerson, I think having meetings through Zoom rather than having to commute to campus just for one meeting is probably something that we're going to use more often.
I would also say that like the idea of like I think that this is totally going to stick around for a while. I think it's the same way that like when like realism became a thing in theater, people were like, whoa, weird, but now people perform realist plays and it's normal. And I also think that like a thing that I'd like to see continue as well is like having all of our paperwork virtual, because in Wardrobe we print a giant binder at the end of each show. It's about this thick and it's full of every single piece of paperwork that we've created through the whole run of the show. It's very helpful for the next years of people using it, but I'd love if we had like a Google Drive with every show from every year and you could click through as opposed to flip through.
I really liked for the use of Google Sheets during my show is for Clown, we had one massive Google Sheet that our SM was calling from, and everybody during the show lived on that sheet, and we could see as the boxes got checked where exactly we were and what standby had been called and what was coming up next, and I really enjoyed having the run of the show and the SM's call sheet and all of my own notes all there in one space. So that's something that I really liked having during the virtual performances.
Great, thank you. So subset to that, what is everyone's favorite Google Sheets hack, shortcut, or tool?
Pasting
Hi.
with the
Yeah. And I didn't know you could do this, but when you like click the cell and it creates a check mark and it makes the cell next to it green, I didn't know you could do this. And when we started using this, I was like, this is so cool, because now I don't actually have to go through and be like, look for yeses. I can just see the green. And I'm like, cool. So that was really cool and very fascinating to me.
And as a very meta moment right now, there is a script that we're following that is happening exactly the same way, getting us through this event. So we've adopted this one very strongly.
Yeah, we had a similar one where every time some one line got finished, the box would be checked, and then all of the sheet would be turned purple, I think. So it was very easy to see where we were exactly, and also just the ability within Google Sheets to modify for different people's needs and just the different formatting you can do to make it the most easiest. The easiest way to use that sheet, I really enjoyed.
I learned something. Some people might have already known that this existed on Excel, but I didn't. That you can make like legitimate like checklists, like where you can like click a button and it has like a little check mark on it, so you can make like to-do lists or checklists on Google Sheets. And I used that to make like sheets for the actors to make little like costume checklists for themselves, so that they could know that like they like just like had all their pieces, and like that just blew me away. I had no idea you could do that, so I think that's super fun.
Amazing. We have another question about the audience experience. Did doing online shows affect what you hoped the audience experience would be?
I'll jump in here. I think because we knew what our outcome was going to be, we adapted the show to what we knew that audiences were going to be watching this at a later time. So we adapted the show with that in mind and used editing like through video to kind of pull everything together, because we knew when we were recording it, it wasn't the final product. So I think in some ways it changed the way we thought it was going to happen, but in a positive way, because it kind of, we were prepared for it. Like we knew we were going to do this. It wasn't like last semester where everything was kind of just online. All of a sudden we knew that our end goal was going to be production online. So yeah.
I think Clown's experience with that was really interesting as well, since we did perform a lot, since we did do a live version of the show. I think it was really different, but also really, because I know that obviously I don't want to speak over the actors, but I know that for Clown, the audience participation and energy is extremely important for them. And so I can imagine that this was a very difficult transition, which they also adjusted to beautifully. Like, I think that I don't know if there are any of the clowns in the audience right now, but they did a wonderful job. And I think that just kind of getting used to the hiccups with running through Zoom Live was really interesting to watch everybody work through. Obviously, Zoom is not, as we kind of discussed, Zoom is not a performance like optimized platform, and that's okay. And so there were some things to like work around, like sometimes if we had the audience like leave their mics on so that there could be some like audience interaction and some audience laughter that the actors could hear, and like sometimes if the audience was laughing too much, like it would cut into the audio of the actors, but like that also created some really really good like interesting opportunities for the actors to kind of work around, especially since clown is like the nature of clown was really good for it, I think, because, you know, sometimes I remember there was like a time where a clown's audio cut out because of that, and then like another one that was also performing like pretended that their audio also cut out and like kind of made it as a part of their whole thing. And so and there were some really cool moments where they actually utilized the Zoom audience to their advantage. Like one of the pieces was like a kissing booth scene where they like put like an audience member like up like displayed, and I think that the moments where the actors like worked with the platform and like worked with like the virtual audience uh provided a really cool opportunity for their talents to really like shine. So there was definitely some good and bad.
Yeah, Zoom definitely provided a whole new set of tools for the clowns to play with, and they came up with some really interesting routines that I don't know if they would have in live.
I'd say having it online allows it to be more accessible, not necessarily for people that don't have proper access to internet, but for people that it may be hard to leave the house, especially in this time, but you know, hard to get to a theater, or you know, they can't see, like they have sight problems, so watching a show at the back of an audience is problematic for them. So I think having it online made it more accessible for some people, which was awesome.
Great. Oh, Michael. go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I think we got time for about 2 more questions. So, well, what do we got?
Perfect. So we have, in a post-vaccine world, what are your fantasies for blending virtual collaboration and live theater?
I think a big one is just like, and I know specifically was like, I loved that we were able to work with like a director who wasn't like here. And I think like that even moving forward would be a super cool thing that we could continue to bring into theater, is working with people that aren't necessarily in your exact location, because now we know it's possible and more than doable.
And at last, a question for the group. Your number one tip for someone who wants to put on a show in this virtual way?
My first tip would be patient with everyone, because everybody is learning an entire new skill set during the production of your show, and if someone doesn't know a thing, it's because the thing may have never been done before. So be patient and always be kind to each other is a big thing that I found very helpful.
I would say building off of that is be okay with change and like build that into your mentality, and things won't work out. Things won't look the way you want them to. Things will be wrong, and that's okay. And you just have to turn and change and adapt. And I think that's a big like skill that can be transferred out of like this world as well.
Yeah, definitely be ready for anything. I think there's a couple of costume pieces still in shipment, like somewhere in Canada. So be ready for anything. And also plan more time than you think you'll need, because Zoom fatigue is real and people need breaks after staring at a screen for so many hours. So definitely that as well. It takes more time, I find, online than in person.
I'm going to bounce off what Liam was speaking about, because I could really attest to this. Plan much more time than you need. And I am a big advocate for balance. You know, I want to say that your work life schedule, you know, your school life schedule, balance everything in life. The fatigue that you could get from just overworking yourself could really be a detriment to the process. I experienced a little bit of burnout on this process, but as long as you have the time, you put a little bit of time in there, a little time buffer, really like soothe the process using a lot of communication. I had amazing people working with me. So when you communicate the problems that you're having within the process, things will get easier. And I can attest to that.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. You know, speaking of some Zoom fatigue, I think let's give everyone an opportunity to, at the end of this, to stand up, some rest, and then get ready to watch Love and Information tonight at 7 o'clock. So I want to extra special thanks to all of our panel here, and thanks to all of the students, all the staff, all the faculty, all of our guest artists that worked on all of our shows this semester and made this virtual season possible. It's been really incredible, and well done. Everything has been subject to change, and you've all pivoted it very, very well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you at the show tonight.